What's up, guys? Here we are at Foundations number 3. You can always go back on the YouTube channel and watch number 1 and 2. But here today, we're going to work on number 3. You're almost through them, guys. And so just like before, we talk about how do you build the excellent life? Well, we shift the way we approach how we train, how we eat, how we sleep, and how we think so we can pass the test of life and live excellent. Today, we are going to talk about think. Okay. The way you think matters a lot more than you think it does. So, Coach Greg Glassman, the guy who founded CrossFit, he said the biggest adaptation to CrossFit takes place between the ears. When you start something really difficult like CrossFit, you start to build neurons in your brain that are more and more capable of doing more and more difficult things in life. And so that just happens naturally. We wanted to give you guys kind of a template or like something to follow along that says, okay, how can I do this a little more intentionally? And so what I did is I took about a decade's worth of personal development coaching and work on myself and the books that I read to help me become better. And I boiled them down to the 5 things that I thought, okay, these were the themes that came up the most or had the biggest impact. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So the first thing in the list is you have to shift your identity. What I mean by that is small shifts in the way you see yourself will radically alter your future. And the reason for that is for example, when you join a gym usually because you're an overweight person who needs to lose weight, or maybe you're an unhealthy person who wants to get healthy. And here's the thing about that. That may be a true statement when you start, but as soon as you start, you are no longer an overweight or unhealthy person. You are now a healthy person or a fit person, and you do the things that healthy and fit people do, and you make decisions the way healthy and fit people do. So that shift in I'm an overweight person trying to lose weight to I'm a fit person who makes fit decisions because that's what fit people do keeps you from backsliding. A lot of times people fail because, okay, I'm an overweight person who needs to lose weight. Well, okay, I've lost the weight, but in your mind somewhere, you're still an overweight person. Well, now that doesn't align with where you're at now, and so you slide back. And so the way you prevent that is as you set a new goal, you now have to become that new person. And you have to set your identity on becoming that new person and leave the old identity behind. It's the first step. Does this happen automatically? No. But if you consciously make the decision to change your language and change the way you think about yourself, it will start to make a difference. Okay. The next thing is growth and grit. Okay. If you set your mind on becoming the best version of you, that's the direction you go. The kicker to this is you have to be willing to do the work until you get there, which might take longer than you think. I've met a lot of people who are like, hey, I want to lose like 40 pounds in the next 2 months. It's like, well, I mean, losing 40 pounds, if that's the weight that you want to lose, that's a good goal. But okay, well, what if it takes you 2 years to lose 40 pounds? I'm not saying that it will, but what if? Would you be willing to stick with it until then? And that's where growth and grit come in. Growth is growth mindset. Grit is the thing that has to go with it. And this comes from 2 very specific books. One is a book called Mindset by a woman named Carolyn Dweck. And what they did is they looked at kids and the way they spoke to them and things like that. And for lack of better terms, we're just going to call them the quote unquote smart kids and the quote unquote dumb kids. And what they did is they separated them into 2 groups and they were giving them tests, right? And the smart kids obviously did well. And the dumb kids, well, obviously didn't. But the way they spoke to those kids about the results of the test is what they varied. For the smart kids, they got the results back. They did well. They said, well, yeah, of course you did well. You're a smart kid. Good job. To the quote unquote dumb kids, what they said was, hey, you didn't do as well on the test as we thought. but we could see that you were working on it. So keep working at it. And I think eventually you'll get it. Let's try the next one, right? And as they gave them progressively harder tests, what started to happen was the quote unquote dumb kids started to outscore the smart kids. Why? Because they believed they could figure out the problems. Now, they didn't know they were going up against or being compared against other kids. They just knew that, hey, I'm going to get a harder test. And they said that I could figure it out if I just keep trying. So I'm going to keep trying. Whereas the smart kids, if they didn't know it, they just skipped it and gave up, right? And so what they did is they said, okay, there's a differentiator here. There are fixed mindset people. I'm just a smart kid and this is what I do. I'm just a dumb kid. This is what I do. Versus a growth mindset. Hey, I don't know this yet, but if I keep working on it, I can eventually get there. And people with a growth mindset in all of their research did far better in any career choice that they made. Now, here's the thing though, is that growth mindset has to come with something called grit. And the name of the book is actually called Grit. It's by a woman named Angela Duckworth, greatest author name ever. And she was looking at people like West Point. It's like, okay, what separated the people who ended up at West Point, which is the most prestigious military school in the United States and really technically worldwide, right? So the kids that got in, what separated the kids that got in from the kids that didn't? And then within that group of kids like young adults, what separated the ones who finished at the top of the class versus the ones who washed out? And it was this thing that she termed grit. It was, and her definition for it is passion and perseverance over the long haul. I will work until I get there. It does not matter how long it takes to get there. It doesn't take 10 minutes, 10 days, 10 years, or a decade, or 10 decades or whatever. They didn't care what length of time it took to accomplish the task. They were going to work until they got there, right? They believed they could become who they thought they could be, and they were willing to do the work until you get there. That's what you have to have. As you shift your identity, you have to believe that you can become that, and you have to be willing to do the work until. Okay? And so the next piece of this is being able to control your focus. If you're going to do the work, you also have to do the right work, which means that you have to control your focus. And really, the only thing you can control is you. You can't control the weather. You can't control other people. You can't control the circumstances that arise. The only thing that you can control is you. So if you focus on controlling you, the decisions you make, the reactions you have, the responses you make to situations and other people, that's what's going to continue to push you forward. And it's going to keep you from getting distracted by shiny objects that pop up. If you're focused in this, that, or the other direction, and you allow something to draw your focus away, it's now going to take you that much longer to get to the goal because you allowed yourself to be distracted. And so we want to make sure that we control our focus on the things that we can control, which is us, our outputs, our responses, our emotions, our thoughts. That's all we have control over. Anything else is outside of our control. And we have to be willing to accept those things as a part of the journey and go, okay, what can I do about this? And then move forward. Continue working towards the new person that you're trying to become. Okay? The next thing is along the way, you're going to get tired and you're going to get bogged down and you're going to want to quit. So gratitude is a huge part of success. Your ability to find something to be grateful for in the darkest of circumstances will dictate how successful you'll be in the long term. If you can be somebody who can always find something to be grateful for, you'll start to become a different person. In fact, if you are actively searching out for things to be grateful for, it's actually very difficult for your brain to express gratitude and find things to be grateful for and be anxious about things. So if you're somebody who struggles with a lot of anxiety, one of the antidotes to that is to start a gratitude practice And when you start your gratitude practice, like you can do a gratitude journal. This is something that I did, is every day for 30 consecutive days, you have to write down 3 things that you're grateful for. The catch is they have to be full sentences, not just random things like this is what I'm grateful for and why I'm grateful for it. And for 30 days, you cannot repeat anything. That means you have to come up with 90 unique things that you're grateful for. And it starts making you search for those things throughout the day. Now you've built a habit of gratitude. How long can you continue beyond 30 days? Can you go to 90? Can you do a full year of gratitude? It will scrub out a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression and a lot of worry. It starts to scrub all that out because you start to realize there's really a lot to be grateful for in this life. And if you can become that kind of person, the things that pop up in life on your journey to become the kind of person you want to be are a lot easier to manage and deal with. Right? So all of these things are things that feed into you becoming a better person. But eventually, we have to go to this last one. And this last one is the golden rule. Now, some of you guys know the golden rule, some of you don't. It's right there on the screen. Go and do for others that which you would have done for you. Many people have heard that, right? Do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. But a lot of people don't know where that comes from. It actually comes from the Bible. It's Matthew 7:12. It's Jesus speaking to people. Now, the reason that this is important is there's a couple of layers to this. Number one, Jesus shows up on the scene in a lot of other religions. You have Judaism, you have paganism, and a whole lot of other things that are existing at this point. And Jesus grows up as a Jew, and he looks around, and a lot of these other religions, pretty much all of them teach kind of the same thing, which is, hey, don't do that which you wouldn't have done to you. Meaning, if you don't want people to steal from you, don't steal from anybody, right? Which is a good rule. It's a good rule to follow. But Jesus shows up and says, you're missing the point. The idea here isn't to refrain from doing those things to people, although that is part of it. He says, what if you go and do actively what you would have done for you? It's a positive, active command. It puts the control back in our hands as human beings and says, what good can I go out there and do in the world for others? And that's where this is a little bit different. All the previous 4 were all about you and controlling you, shifting your identity, having a growth mindset, having the grit to do it, controlling your focus, finding gratitude. Those are all things you have to do for you. But the golden rule says now you got to go and do for others that which you would have done for you. Now, here's the kicker to this. There's a lot of people who say, well, but the things that I like, people wouldn't like, other people don't like the same things that I like. True, but you're selling this teaching short if that's where you're at. Meaning this is my favorite example. If you've ever heard of the 5 love languages, this will make sense to you. If you haven't, go look it up. It's really cool. But essentially, there are 5 love languages, meaning there are essentially 5 ways people express and receive love. There's words of affirmation, quality time, gift giving, acts of service, and physical touch. Those are the top 5. Okay. And to use this as an example, my number 1 is my wife's number 4, and her number 1 is my number 4. Both of us, our number 5 is gift giving. We're just awkward gift givers and gift receivers. We don't do that well. But my number 1 is physical touch. I'm somebody who has 0 personal bubble. I'm the dude who's always going to hug you. I'm going to dap you up, right? I'm going to walk right next to you. I'm going to sit right next to you on the bus. Like, I just have no personal bubble, right? And if you're in my circle of influence, like, I'm always going to be giving you hugs. Like, that's just the way I am, right? And then for my wife, hers is acts of service, meaning the way she expresses love is by doing things for you. Like, she completely reorganized our pantry one day, and she was like, look, babe, I did our pantry. And I was like, cool. That was her expressing love, but I didn't receive it that way because I don't understand that, right? Now, why am I telling you all this? If I'm having a really bad day, what I want from Marka is a hug. That's what I want. I want to be next to her, Like that's what's going to comfort me and make me feel loved. If she's having a bad day, what she needs me to do is serve her in some way. Go and figure out what can I take off of her plate and do for her, right? That's not my first thought, and giving me a hug is not her first thought. What Jesus is saying, hey, you need to step outside of yourself, figure out what that person needs, and go and do for them what they need in this moment, because that's what you would have done for you if you were in their shoes. Not this specific act that you're thinking of, but I need somebody when I'm in the darkest pits of my life. I need somebody willing to step outside of themselves, sit down next to me, figure out what I need, and help me back up. That's what I need. So that's what Jesus is talking about here. Now, what does this have to do with identity and mindset? Well, here's the thing. If you've done all of this really good work to build yourself up, eventually you have to go and do for somebody else. That's the next step. But here's where this kicks in is when you go and do that for somebody else, it starts to change your identity. So now that identity of that person that you're trying to build shifts and strengthens. And so now you get to go back through this pyramid, this process all over again, right? Because now you have a new identity. Now you're not just this new person that's doing all these new things and you're doing blah, 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 blah. Now I've also gone out and helped somebody else do it. And it was really exciting. So now not only am I this new person, I'm this new person who actually goes out and helps other people. Boom. How can I become a better person to continue helping more people? Oh, and you just keep walking your way through those loops. And eventually you get to this place where you've helped a ton of other people and you didn't even know it. And now you're also a completely different person yourself. So as you guys walk through this journey of CrossFit, right, you're becoming a fitter person. You're learning how to move your body better. You're learning how to feed your body better. You're learning how to recover better. All of those things from a physical standpoint. But from a mental, emotional, and spiritual standpoint, you're going to grow as well. This just gives you a little bit of an idea of a process to, okay, what kinds of things can I put into my life and the way I think about the world and other people around me? What can I put into my life that's going to continue to make it better? Well, you can think about what is your identity right now, right? Is it good or is it bad? Could I make it better? All right, let's make it better. Well, if I'm going to change my identity, that means that I have to put myself in this place of growth, saying, okay, if I'm going to do this, I have to believe that I can grow into that kind of person and be willing to do the work that I need to do that. And along the way, I need to control my focus so I stay focused on becoming that kind of person. And I need to find some gratitude. And then as I grow and I find this gratitude and I do all this other work, along the way, I'm going to pick somebody up and I'm going to help them with what they're struggling with because I'm doing some work too, right? And it just helps push you forward even more in your journey to become a healthier, fitter person, right? It's not just the physical. It's the spiritual, it's the mental, it's the emotional as well. All right. So if you guys have any questions about that, I'm always here to talk about that. If you're like, dude, I know I want to become better, but I don't know what that looks like for me. Guys, that's what I do. I spent 8 years as a youth pastor. I can help you walk through that stuff because that's what I did for 8 years. And outside of that, guys, you are done with foundations. Great work. I look forward to seeing you in the box. Have a great day, y'all.